OldGuyTalks.com is all about being a better man. Join me on this kick-ass journey. Exclusive stuff for members only in the Old Guy Cave. Opt in now. This is information only. Consult with an appropriate professional before starting any program. Do not be stupid. You are responsible for your own shit. The Old Guy is a capitalist and not a socialist weasel. He will be promoting stuff here and may be compensated. You can rest assured the Old Guy only promotes stuff he uses. You may have different results.
This is Orson, the Old Guy from www.oldguytalks.com, here with Bob Krakauer for his Facebook Live interview on basically growth through loss. But before we get to the interview, I need to tell you that you need to opt in. And when you do, you're going to get life-changing hacks for old guys like you and me to have a kick-ass life. Opt in now. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Don't procrastinate. When you do so, you're going to find out how you can support the Navy SEALs Fund also with oldguytalks.com. So tonight, I'm very happy to have my friend Bob Krakauer here. And as I said in my promo, Bob's a very, very successful businessman. Has been in the C-suite area for the most of his corporate career. Been through many companies. Some of them you'll recognize as marquee companies in the world. So Bob had an interesting transformation, and I want him to tell us about it because, first of all, like many of us, Bob struggled with weight. And the first question I want to ask you is, what was different this time? Because you've been down this road several times about trying to get control of your weight, but what made this a different type of journey for you?
Yeah, I think, Morris, appreciate the question. And although I might be jealous, you've got the cigar in hand. I need one on this end. But I think the transformation for me was really, it was less about a negative, or sometimes people think of loss or diets as a negative issue. For me, it was more about a positive. I positively wanted to take control of my health. In particular, I was diabetic type 2. That had come on with weight and age and diet. And I just decided that, it was more about my health. It was about controlling that, but more importantly, wanting to get out and do things physically that I was incapable of doing at my fitness level and weight level. I'd always been a big guy my whole life. And as I turned 50, I set a goal for myself to kind of be at a record low weight as an adult. I wanted to kind of roll back the clock to what I weighed at 40 and 30 and 20 and what did I weigh at 18, and that kind of took a life of its own.
So when you started this, tell us where'd you start? What was your starting point when you started transformation?
I was over from a weight perspective. Yeah, I was over 350.
That's a lot of weight to carry. And how tall are you?
6'2".
6'2". Okay, so that's and I'm sure you knew the body fat percentages, or did you look at those, or it just didn't matter at this point?
No, I knew what they were. I actually, as I started this program, I did a medically supervised diet through a company called Red Mountain Weight Loss. So it was very, very regimented to start. So I would say I lost my first 50 pounds on a medically controlled diet where we did measure exact weight and exact body fat percentage.
Okay. When you started this, did you have a target in mind about where you wanted to get to, or were you just kind of moving along and saying, okay, I'm happy when I get here? And if you had a target, how'd you decide on it?
Yeah, my target was, I knew exactly what I weighed as I graduated from high school. I used to play football and wrestle. And so I knew my exact weight that I wrestled at. And so that was my goal. And I needed to lose about 60 pounds to hit that number from where I started. And I actually hit that goal drastically faster than I expected.
Wow. Okay. So the first part, what exactly did you do? Oh, I need to get my disclaimer out. So this is information only. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot my disclaimer. This is information only Results may vary. That's right. Do not start anything without consulting the appropriate healthcare professional. Don't be a dumbass. That's right. I was told I have the most badass disclaimer. I can't believe I didn't start this interview with it. Normally I do. So go on, Bob.
Yeah, so I wasn't a dumbass in this case. It was medically supervised, and I did, the HCG-based diet through Red Mountain Weight Loss, which has facilities in Arizona and other places around the country. And actually, there's HCG-based diet medically supervised programs probably everywhere nationally. So that was really what I used to lose my first 50 pounds. And someone said something to me, and again, in this kind of journey, you take inputs from a lot of people, whether that be in, for me, I added testosterone based on a recommendation of an old guy I know.
Yeah, it's no secret where that came from, Bob.
Exactly right. So started testosterone, which was helpful. Did an HCG diet for the first 50 pounds. And then after that, frankly, I had a discipline rolling from a diet perspective that worked out well. But I read something or heard it, but one of the inputs I heard that, in this kind of transformation, 70% of it happens in the kitchen and 30% of it happens in the gym. So one of the things from a HCG diet perspective, they usually advise you not to do physical fitness, which to me sounded crazy. So I actually did both a fitness program, and a diet program. And I think normally people usually do one or the other. I did both, and that's why the first 50 came off so quickly. And I think at some point early on, I set a fitness goal, to really, from a physical capability perspective, there was two things I wanted to do. One is probably a year before my journey started, my children had gone wakeboarding. I think it was in San Diego on a vacation. I just was physically incapable of doing stand-up wakeboarding, in the open ocean, and doing that with my, adult age kids. And I just thought that was just a lost opportunity. So one of my goals was really to be able to do that activity, which I did very successfully, probably about 6 months after I started my journey. And the second one was I set a goal for myself to run a Spartan race. I don't know exactly how that came on my radar screen, but I set a goal for myself. I set a date. So I had friends join me in that journey, and join me in that race. And then as I lost the weight, it started to become less about weight loss and more about physical fitness. And I set in my mind, I'd say the first year of my journey was all about losing the weight, and I kind of hit and then surpassed drastically the number that I had expected. Went over, kind of lost a little over 140 pounds in total. But at that point, I actually got quite thin. And I would say year 2 of my journey, in some ways I've bulked up, but I've bulked up with muscle mass. And so I keep very tight control and monitoring of my body fat percentage. But I've added significant muscle weight this year and physical fitness and fitness capability. So this year I kind of migrated to setting a goal of doing a tough physical task once a month. And that included several Spartan races. I ran my first half marathon, numerous 10Ks through the year. Here in November, I just finished something called the Spartan Mile this last weekend, and I kind of have a goal at the end of the year, which is to climb Mount Kilimanjaro on my birthday, which will be the second, year anniversary of this transformation.
Yeah. Well, having done that many years ago, in 2003, I know you're already now. You're already physically fit, Bob. I think it's very interesting what you mentioned here, and maybe we can kind of get a little more into this, because I think a lot of times people start with the whole idea of losing weight, and it becomes hard to stay on the track. But I think you were able to do that by creating physical challenges. Oh, it's the president calling for me. I'll have him call him back later.
Okay.
So how'd you come upon that idea to create these challenges for yourself that were actually kind of tangible goals out there?
Well, I actually did two things. I think there's another podcaster, Tim Ferriss, who talks about this a little bit, is about accountability systems. And very early on, I shared my 50-pound plus goal to get to my, rolling back the clock of what did I weigh at 40, 30, 20, and 18. I shared that with a number of people that, I trusted, would remind me. I asked them to keep me accountable to that goal, keep me accountable to my diet issues when I was at work, especially at the office. And so I shared the goal with people and asked them, please keep me accountable and help me keep on track. And I think that helped initially with the weight loss. I think because in some ways weight loss becomes kind of a negative orientation at times about the scale, really because it was more about health, I realized it was more about what I could do versus what I couldn't do, right? So it was less about what I couldn't eat, but mentally I changed it into what am I choosing to eat that helps me reach my goals, whether that be a health, beating diabetes, which I did, or the goal was to, I'm choosing to eat a certain way because it's going to help me go do this physical thing I want to be able to go do, this activity that, I want to, knock off that bucket list. And so that transforms mentally, I think, into a very positive frame. And I think that's why a lot of diets are broken, is because people see it as I can't do something. I can't eat the bowl of ice cream or the piece of cake or whatever. For me, it's a very different issue. Is I'm not eating the bowl of ice cream or the piece of cake because it's going to negatively impact the other thing I want to do. So I'm making a choice of I'm choosing this because it's a positive outcome for me personally.
Okay, so you change the hierarchy of things that are important to you in order to achieve that. Along this journey, did you ever have any setbacks or course corrections that you had to? Oh, now the president's calling you.
That's right. He wants to break in.
Did you ever have any setbacks or course corrections that you had to do along the way?
Yeah, I did. I think one of the bucket list items I wanted to achieve physically was to try amateur MMA. I'm a big MMA fan.
I know we've been to several fights. We've watched a few together.
We have. And so I did join an MMA gym and was doing MMA classes, and at a certain point kind of bust up my elbow doing that. So I had a surgery around that process that stopped the physical fitness, at least from a weightlifting perspective and MMA perspective for a period of time, which caused some difficulty. So as you go on the physical fitness journey, I'm sure everyone who has had little hiccups. I also fought through a little bit of knee issues from, had to scale back the running, replace it with hiking and some more weightlifting instead. So, I've had to modify the physical fitness side just based on physical capability over time.
So basically, you have to deal with reality as it comes along and course correct as you do.
Absolutely.
Was there a time that you kind of felt like before you got to your target that like, oh, this is enough, I'm ready to give up, or how did you feel that way, or did you ever handle that, or
I haven't. I think there's been certain phases. So at a certain point, I realized that I had to shift away from a focus of weight loss and had to focus more on what is my physical strength and body composition. And so one of the things I changed about 9 months ago is I started to realize my gym time started to be fairly repetitive. I was doing spin classes every single day, which I still do spin classes, but less often. And then my time in the weight room, I tended, like a lot of guys, I was doing the stuff I learned in high school from the high school weightlifting, coach. but it was fairly repetitive. And the thing I mixed up is I started to look to professionals, both in what I read, fitness magazines, started to get other ideas of other approaches to mix up my training. And so this year, the physical challenges I've done have been somewhat varied, which has kept it interesting. I also work with personal trainers. I have a personal trainer that I work with 2 days a week. That's more of a core body fitness, kettlebell, and some kind of more of a CrossFit oriented personal trainer that I do 2 days a week. And then 1 day a week, I work with a personal trainer that has got a very different orientation. It's about running technique. It's about mobility, agility, stretching, and it actually has a very different orientation. So that's kept it interesting. Over the last 3 months, as I've started to train for Kilimanjaro, I've added doing, kind of what I call straight, elevation oriented hiking as part of my training regime. And I think changing it up for me has kept it interesting and varied, so I don't get bored and I don't get bored in the gym.
Oh, actually, I was listening to something today. Garrett J. White, he was talking about because he just did the Tough Mudder. I don't know if you were watching.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But he was talking about walking on his heels and getting your glutes. I actually kind of I have not had a chance to research that, but that was kind of an interesting concept to do that. It's going up Kilimanjaro. That may be the thing to take a look at.
Actually, a lot of the hiking reading I've done says coming down, hit your heels.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you,
Yeah.
it's you go through what's called scree, and basically you're sliding down for about 5 or 6 hours on the way down. It is, and you're already dead dog tired. And as we all know, 90% of injuries are on mountains come on the way down, not on the way up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bob, how'd you handle temptations? Maybe people at the time not being as supportive as they could be along the process. How because we all know that happens. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, have this donut, man. It won't hurt you. Just have one donut. Obviously one donut's not going to have, but if you have a dozen. But how'd you handle that? Because that's always there's always people trying to, and it's usually, it's usually the fat guy in the room trying to give you advice on how to lose weight.
Yeah, what's really interesting about that is I've used a couple. I call it positive brainwashing, but in some ways I also brainwash the people around me. I actually, in a somewhat teasing way, if people offer me sugar or a donut or those kinds of things, my usual response is to say I'm allergic.
Okay.
And I think they realize you can't be allergic to a donut. And if they ask me, really, you're allergic to a donut? And I say, well, that's how I think about it because I really shouldn't be eating that donut. Yeah. And then usually, because I've become a little bit of a food Nazi. I got to be very, very careful about what I say. I'll say, and you probably are allergic to that donut too. You just don't realize it. So that's what goes through my head. But actually,
that big tire you're wearing tells me you have an allergy.
No, I've been there. So actually, in my office, where a lot of that happens is in the work environment. So in my office, I'm very well known. I have a very big fruit bowl that always has great apples, great oranges in it, and I actually have a habit in the office. If I see someone eating a donut or eating potato chips, I usually will drop off an apple on their desk. So I have a little bit of a subtle message across the office. I try to. Yeah, I usually am well known for saying I care about you enough to encourage you to eat this apple. Right. So, that's my normal message.
Okay. Next thing you know, you're going to be cutting it up for them too.
Well, my best office joke to support a healthy lifestyle is there's a group that eats donuts every Friday. And I once brought in a box of Krispy Kremes, and when they opened it, it was actually vegetables and vegetable dip. So they got a different form of Krispy Kremes that week.
So, Bob, how long has it been since you lost all that weight?
You know, it's
When you,
it's been a year and a half now, I think.
okay, so
Yeah.
the
It
truth be
started it
told,
started it started 2 years ago.
so the truth be told is that a lot of people lose weight
Mhm.
only to pack it back on again. I mean, I've been
Right.
there, I've done that.
Yeah.
Kind of a the yo-yo effect, and you've been successful in keeping it off and actually and replacing it with muscle mass. So, what kind of hacks did you find to be able to do that?
I picked up things from people around me. So I have a nephew who I highly respect, is a fantastic athlete. He's an athlete, and he's been a Division I athlete in two different sports, which is pretty darn rare, both football and baseball. And I love to compare notes with him. He's given me plenty of great advice about what I call weightlifting supplements and my supplementation and vitamin regime. Um, and I've continued to refine what I do from a fitness perspective from people I respect, whether it be personal trainers, other people in the gym. I have a very good friend uh, who's got, a fitness website, High Performance Life, who's an ultra marathoner. I've shared hacks that he shared with me.
Oh,
Whether
go ahead, mention it. Go, mention his website. That's fine.
Yeah, High Performance Life. It's a
Okay.
gentleman named Joe Gagnon. He's got a very different fitness orientation. He's done what they call the 6 continent challenge, which is 6 marathons in 6 days on 6 continents.
Wow. Just the
I
flights will kill you.
yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, so Joe's been an inspiration to me, and I think some others as well. One of the things that's kind of maybe interesting, I know in Spartan racing, there's a lot of Spartan racers that have physical disabilities, either a lost limb, either
Sure.
military guys, or there's a fairly famous Spartan racer, Misty Diaz, who has a birth defect that she struggles through and has done amazing physical things in Spartan and other kind of adventures. And so I find a lot of inspiration from people that maybe don't have every limb, have physical disabilities that they overcome. And so my orientation now is to take inspiration from others and incorporate those little things. But I think really avoiding, for me, and I think everyone's body's different, but for me, I really avoid processed foods where I can. And over time, there's extremely, there's a smaller and smaller percentage of my diet is processed foods. I've given up diet soda. I've cut out alcohol dramatically from my diet. I used to do a scotch a day. Now I kind of have a rule. I really only drink alcohol with my wife or very, very close friends. I don't drink alcohol in any environment at all that's business related, where I used to on every business dinner. And so just cutting those things, those extra calories out of the diet is pretty important. I don't think people realize how many calories they drink versus eat. So I try to consume 0 calories from what I drink. So that means drinking a lot more iced tea and coffee or water. And when I say coffee without all the stuff, coffee black,
Sure.
without all the additives. So, that's, I think, from my life hacks, it's that and avoiding carbs, processed carbs. So I get carbs through, vegetables and, natural grains, very limited. I try to avoid the white carbs. I had a doctor at one point who said, the best thing to do for your diet is don't eat things that are white. And what he meant was potatoes, rice, bread, especially
Sure.
processed white flour. A lot of things that are white aren't that, just from a color perspective, aren't good for you if you're sensitive to a glycemic index, which is, what's pre-diabetes.
Sure.
I think early on I read a book called the High Glycemic Diet. It's kind of the first thing and I started to realize anything that converts quickly to sugar doesn't work well for me. Now, this is this case for everybody. You have to figure out your own body chemistry. I think it's one of the things I've learned by listening to kind of performance gurus is as you eat stuff, you figure out how it feels the next day in the gym?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you feel like you have more energy? Do you have less energy? You know, you can really feel that. You know, for me, I would say as I started this diet, it was somewhat, my diet now is very paleo like. So it's a lot of, you know, meat, proteins, and green vegetables and fruit. And I limit the fruit a bit. And I think over time, where it was very chicken oriented and red meat, it's now shifted more to fish and chicken and less red meat. And actually less meat proteins and more, you know, vegetarian like. I've added more legumes or quinoa and those kinds of things into the diet. So, and again, that's just how it reacts for me in my physical performance of what I'm trying to achieve.
Okay. So, Bob, at times when you are indulging in cheats, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, my definition of cheats is probably different than other people. I would say mine. I think a lot of people that are close to me would know what my cheat is. I consider my cheat food chicken wings, because the sauce they put on chicken wings is, you know, oftentimes not that great for you. You know, so my cheat food is chicken wings, which on the relative scale of things isn't so bad.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And so
so to me mentally, that's my cheat food.
Oh, okay. So everybody doesn't get an idea that you're a goody two shoes. Tell us about some of your vices.
Well, like I said one earlier, which is like you, I say my vices are cigar smoking, and being head over heels in love with my wife. So she's my vice.
Oh, well. Listen to this. She's watching too. Okay. Yeah. We know what that's intended to do. What kind of response that's supposed to? Yeah. Bob just said that for you, and you to basically reward him in kind when you see him again.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So that's right. So, one last question, Bob. So someone is sitting here and watching this interview, and you know they're overweight. You know they're carrying a lot of fat on their body.
Yeah.
What things would you tell them? What things would you tell them to think about and consider to get into a healthy state?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is a mental framework. You know, at the end of the day, I'm the same person inside. Physically, I may have changed over the last years, but I'm the same guy. So it doesn't make you know, whether you have a lot of weight or you're thinner, it doesn't change whether or not you're a good person, right? And I think a lot of people have a body image issue that translates into them about how they feel about themselves. I think the more positive way to, instead of looking at that on a negative perspective, saying I don't like my body, instead say, I like my body. I just want to achieve and be able to do certain things. So whether that be skateboarding, like for me, stand up wakeboarding with my kids, you know, climb a mountain, and I think it's in small steps, right? So if you say, I want to physically do this, and I'm somewhat of a quantoid, I'm a financially oriented executive. So for me, at times it was things I measure in the gym. How many reps, you know, how many miles do you run? At what speed do you run? You know, for some people it might be how the speed you walk. But I think if you put it into a positive mental brainwashing personally I think has helped me a lot. So I actually frame things in a positive way, saying, you know, this is a great day. I woke up today. You know, as an old guy, we say that more and more, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's about, you know, being thankful for my health, being thankful for those around me. And if you come from a positive vein, it's a lot easier to maintain than saying, oh goodness, I'm missing this food. If you have that orientation, you're going to break that diet, guaranteed. Eventually it'll break down. I think. Okay. I think it's pretty, if you're thinking about it in a negative way, it's pretty tough to keep it up. I would say, you know, I started this journey at the age of 49. So I think the bigger thing is it's doable. And there's lots of success stories out there. A lot of people can do it, and a lot of times you just don't think you can. So I think that's a critical thing, is to believe that you can, and start in small steps. For me, I originally thought it was a stretch goal to lose 50, 60 pounds, and it ended up, going much beyond that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and it has been. So your transformation has been remarkable, and the fact that you've been able to maintain it is equally remarkable, because, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people do the stuff and then they just basically having to fall back to where they used to be. So, Bob, I want to thank you for the interview tonight, and for coming on and sharing your journey with everyone. I hope that people find this inspirational, and to understand that they too, if they're facing the same challenges, can do so and follow your path, or modify your path in a way that fits their lifestyle and fits who they are. So
yeah, if they want help, send me a note.
Okay. So this is Orest, the Old Guy, from www.oldguytalks.com, in his man cave that is impenetrable to the NSA, because the site is wrapped in heavy-duty aluminum foil that is impenetrable to the sensors at the NSA. And if you have not already opted in, do so now. Get more life hacks like this for a kick-ass life. That's all about. It's about, just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to be old. Take care. Until next time.
Opt in and encourage other old guy assholes like you to opt in also.